Hello everyone, this is Dandy Dragon, and today I am once again joined by the mightiest of penguins for some more AoE4 1v1 cast. Penguin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey all, Sir Pengwin here. I am a YouTuber and Twitch streamer, although lately it's been more Twitch streaming than YouTubing. But yeah, mostly play Age of Empires and excited to kind of dive into some of these new civs even more now that we know so much more about them.
Yep, people have started to play some new civs, and right now everyone's been playing House of Lancaster, everyone's playing Knights Templar, everyone's playing HRE, Mongol, but mainly just those two new civs. I think I was talking to you about this earlier, Penguin. I think they're like between 1/3 to half of the total games right now are with those two civs. And that's also been my experience.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that I saw the numbers like a week ago. It was like 25% Templar picks, which they're replacing England in the pick rate, with England sitting at like 1% after all the nerfs and everything. And I think House of Lancaster is at like 10% or something like that. If you want to go into the numbers there, yeah, it is like a third of the games.
Yeah, it's crazy. Either way, a lot of people have been talking about how good these two new civs are, and obviously I've been seeing them on the ladder, so I've been playing against them. So if you're good to get going, let's go ahead and get play. And let's yeah, I'm going. We're looking at what the opponents are doing. We have Knights Templar with Gersenix, and then myself over here on the right, him on the left, and we are on Himeyama. Dandy doing the normal dandy thing of going double scout because I just want all the sheep. They belong to me and they should be mine.
I like double scout on Himeyama because as much as that little water is just a tiny little speck on the map, it feels so much bigger. Like you are restricted to one side if you get blocked. And I love your scouting pattern here. You've already cut off yellow on the top, and then on the bottom, like you're just gonna have all of the sheep down there because there's no scout to be seen.
Yep, I didn't go up because I didn't see his scout. I'm like, huh, he must have went south. I better just loop around and get the top because he clearly went downwards. But no, he went to the back of his base, then up, that's a bad scouting pattern. That is really bad.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that approach. You got to go at least look for the opponent's scout. You can't just try to avoid them. I don't know. That's rough. You just took, I think, 3/4 of the map, and they're gonna get the top.
Yeah, I'm on 10 sheep so far, and I still have the entire bottom section to scout out and get the sheep for. So my opponent here is going to be food starved, which, if anyone who knows this map, being food starved early is extremely detrimental because none of the food is really under TC. Like, even the initial berries are usually only partially covered, and the deer are pretty far out.
Yeah.
Like, you can't push them under TC. So my opponent is going to struggle for the food income this game, which, as a French, that's exactly what I love.
Especially in this matchup with French Templar, like, you want so much food. So does Templar. I mean, Templar can get the wood to support their food, but they still need a good like oomph because all of their useful units, all their interesting units, are pretty food heavy.
Yep.
Ultimately, so yeah, they're gonna not be feeling good on that single sheep the Yellow Scout has right now.
I think he gets those two in the north. The one around the sacred side. I think I missed those, which I'm saddened by or I think I missed at least one of them. I could be wrong, because I remember him having at least more than one sheep, but I could be wrong. Maybe I just get them all and he's just gonna suffer.
Yeah,
very possible.
One thing I've been trying to like get at lately in my streams and stuff is going back to the basics, because there's a lot of people trying to get into Age of Empires and it's not easy because it's a hard game. It's not an easy game to learn, and some of the RTS basics are not super obvious. But I just wanted to kind of point out, like, scouting can be really frustrating, and we've been talking about scouting so far. And one of the things that's really frustrating for people in scouting is it's not obvious where the sheep are because of the RNG in Age of Empires.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you want to get better at gathering that food early, you learning a basic scout pattern by going straight towards your opponent's base and trying to cut them off on one side, like it can make a huge difference in your food. If food is a struggle for you, you'll have more sheep and it'll be easier to sort of maintain and control the map.
Yep, and my opponent actually still out on the map is down to only 2 sheep. That's rough. And I managed to get another 2 off him. So he didn't get I thought he grabbed 2 more. I guess he literally just kept scouting and only found 1 more. That is rough. Imagine scouting and getting 2 sheep.
Yeah. That feels bad. My friend A-Man would literally GG. He would leave the game with 2 sheep, I think.
Against French, you almost kind of have to. Like, I don't say this to be rude to my opponent, but if you have to be out on the map for food, like, you're kind of screwed. So, funnily enough, I'm at about 4.5 minute mark. I'm not sure where you're at, but I'm kind of just fighting this wolf because it was pissing me off. There's no reason for me to fight it.
Bills on the deer.
Yeah, I just see the bills on the deer, so I decide to be a little cheeky, and I'm just gonna go spread them. Like, he's forced out onto deer.
Yeah,
I just ruin it.
I am happy for yellow here. The first thing they thought to do was build a tower before going all crazy up here, because your knights are gonna be out like now-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. I was like, the knights around here somewhere.
Oh man, this really sucks for my opponent because, like, he legit just can't get the deer now. Like, I'm gonna sacrifice the scout for that because I have double scout. I don't care if I lose it. And now he literally can only get 3 deer under that mill, which is bad. And actually, I'm gonna be a cheeky guy, take the hits, and I'm gonna push the deer up more with the knight.
And with Jeanne, you can get away with stuff like that because you can heal that knight up later. Like, you're not that worried about the health on that knight.
Yeah. And this is rough for my opponent. He's down 2 vills. He doesn't have good food sources, and all his food is out on the map. Like, none of this is safe for him. That's gonna ruin his economy. And yeah, like you said, I'm just gonna pull back the injured knight, and I'll just, like, camp his sacred sites. Like, at this point, if I just deny the sacreds, he's kind of just behind on eco.
And you can tell that Gersnix here is kind of freaking out because, like, they just floated like 500 wood while trying to deal with this up on the top side and secure that food, when they should already be producing those Chevalier that they've gone into. So they're late on the Chevalier, they're late on the spears, and now they have no choice but to go spears first to try to counter your knights. So like, Gersnix making a good choice now, but because they were freaking out, because they were like losing their composure early, you can already see how that has affected their build order. And this is not a bad player.
Yeah, this guy has reached Conk 2 in the past, I believe, though I did make a mistake and I forgot to produce vills for like 30 seconds. So, like, rough on me because I'm down 2 vills now. And but here we can see, like, because of the positioning, I can kind of pressure him from 2 flanks, and there's not a lot my opponent can do. Like, he's like got a garrison in to the tower whenever he's like, I come in on him, and now I can kind of push both flanks, force the early towers, which is not something he wants. Though I did forget to A move at night, and a pilgrim gets past. Gosh darn them peaceful pilgrims.
I have mixed feelings about Templar on this map. Like, on the one hand, I think it makes a lot of sense to, I know people just will play any civ on any map, but just to kind of get into this, like, there are 2 sacred sites on opposite ends of the map. So it's kind of fun. You can redirect your pilgrims as needed based on where your enemy is. But it's also easier to deny as the opposing player. Like you were just saying, because there are only 2 sacred sites, it's easier to split your army in 2. You've got knights in their base hitting their gold while also delaying the pilgrims on the top side. And you can scout out any pilgrims coming on the bottom as well. So you kind of have a, like, don't have to work as hard to deny yellow's gold as you would on a map with 3 sites.
Yep, because now I only have to worry about 2 flanks, not 3, which as a knight civ is no problems for me. I can be in 2 locations, no problem. And my poor opponent just trying to get villagers out on that food and just cannot get them over there. Like, he is.
Yeah, and you can see the villager count.
Yeah, it's. That is rough. Poor Jeanne Holy Wrath there from me. But I will get a spear, and will I get that archer? No, I think he protects that archer, and I pull back. But I will say, my opponent being down 6 like vills right now between idle and just raids, and already forced into early farms. That's never what you want to be on. That is rough.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're technically, you're down 2 technically, right? Because you were even with them when you should have been ahead like 2 with the age up timing. So because like you said earlier, delaying that villager building, but that hurts so bad for the Templars. They got into a position where they'd probably be happy, but now like, yeah, this is where Templars start to struggle. I think they can afford the farms, they can afford food off of this wood, but they're making trash, and they're against Jeanne, who loves.
Yeah, I eat trash for
who
breakfast.
Who loves fighting against trash.
Yeah, I see these spears, I'm just like, oh, yummy, yummy, yummy XP. Come, let me Holy Wrath you. Miss micro on my Holy Wrath again. I was playing poorly that game.
Absolutely. The Holy Wraths are a little disappointing for sure. As that knight goes down to those spears, maybe could have saved it with a good AoE timing there. But yeah.
Oh man. I'll say though, if you look over to the right, you'll see I've also begun to start trading because I know my opponent has a lot of spears. I may be able to break them if I double down on knights. But the one thing I've kind of learned as of late, if you don't want to switch into archers, like getting trade for the extra gold will allow you to afford more knights. While simultaneously, I've really just found just consistent pressure with knights just ends up working so much better than worrying about archers. Because if the game, let's say I make a mistake and I throw away a bunch of military or I throw away a bunch of eco, having the other like 10, 20 traders is going to give me a lot more room for error. Because now suddenly I can go castle and stuff like that because I don't need to go on the map for food. I can trade for food. I can trade for my gold. I'm a lot more safe with my eco because I can just trade for whatever I need, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
And that is more eco kills. Oh gosh. Man is down 10 villages.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm feeling so bad for Templar right now, trying to grab those deer, not able to grab any natural food on the map except those 4 villagers left under the tower.
Yeah.
And you have the trade route. You talked about setting up the trade, but you also neglected to mention how BM this trade route is. You secured the bottom of the map, and you're basically trading to their trading post in some ways. Assuming but looking at the wood line, looking at the place your knights are, it's your side of the map now. You've split the map halfways, basically, that way.
Well, and that, if anyone who knows me knows, I love to trade to my opponent's market. Because
it's longer. You can get more gold. It's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it.
And who doesn't love looking back at a stream and being like, that shouldn't have been safe, but it was.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the wood line. If you just walled that wood line all the way to like the water, oh my gosh. Like that's what, 100 wood investment for secure trade on the bottom? That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's. And then if I do, let's say I do the wall there, I also then secure 2 relics on actually 3 relics on that side of the map. Relics that he should be able to contest for more easily, he cannot because I've suddenly just walled up the map. And this is one thing I've been, and you may notice this with a couple of the recordings we do coming up as well, but I've really found luring your opponent back towards your fresh Jeanne, towards your like night mass, and if you get a bit of healing in, it really doesn't matter if you lose a few traders in the process because you end up you're able to take out an army like this. I see 10 spears, 14 archers, and I think, man, 13 knights can beat that. Now suddenly, like, even if I lose 4 or 5 traders, if I can beat this army, it's worth it. And he's kind of just given me the victory because he's put himself out of position where my knights can get on top of him. If anything, I may even be able to flank him.
And to speak to that, to any players who are like, trying to develop their knight gameplay. I know there's a lot of players in gold, in silver, who love playing France and love getting that early aggression out because you get a lot of wins that way. But one thing that I think a lot of people haven't fully figured out is how important it is to keep your knights alive when you can. And right there, because you kept your knights alive, like you said, pulled back to your main army, you've just cleaned up twice the amount of units that you had. You do lose a good chunk of knights here, but I think it was worth it because you're protecting your trade. There are no spears left, so those knights are just going to clean up all these archers.
Yeah, like 2 knights can beat 10 archers, no problem. And then I still have the reinforcements that are now going to go to his food that he can no longer defend. So suddenly that deer is just not safe. And one knight in Jeanne will literally just pick off the last of those archers. So now I'm up to 14 eco kills, or 16 now, because I was willing to sacrifice a few traders. And this is one thing I really try to teach people when I'm teaching new players. You gotta be willing to sacrifice. It feels bad, but sometimes that's what you gotta do. If it means winning the fight to throw away like 3 houses, throw away the 3 houses. Throw away the 2 villagers if it means protecting your army mass. You know? Not everything has to be
totally.
100%.
I was just watching a game that A-Man was playing where he was against Ottomans as Templar, and he took out both enemy TCs. He took out most of their base, but they hit a beautiful castle age timing, conserved a big chunk of their vills, and managed to make enough knights that feudal age all-in A-Man could not counter it, even with his like sort of what seemed to be a superior position. And that it's exactly that. It's preserving your army mass. If your army numbers are high enough, you can just turn that eco lead right around really quickly.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's a funny concept, but in the beginning of the game, like the first 10 to 12 minutes, villagers are more important than a military. But then when you get to like that 15 to 25 minute mark, your military is the most important thing because that's what's going to win games. Like if suddenly you go in, you kill your opponent's military, like I do here, like if you're at the same timing as me, I'm in my opponent's base, and he's literally having to fight me with vills to try to hold this, which is not where he wants to be.
Yeah, his vills are frontlining for those spears, and it just feels bad now, because now the vills are going down. There's only 1 spearman left, and that's a good cleanup right there.
So yeah, now suddenly, despite the fact that I had a weaker military in a sense, like he could have just stayed under TC, garrisoned up, and pulled back. But because I saved my military, I did, and I took out his earlier. Now suddenly I could afford a trade like that to get another like 6 eco kills. My opponent's eco will just not keep up. He's going castle right now. That was the worst decision he could have done. He needs to just pump military and just survive. Because he's down eco. Like,
I think a lot of players have...
Or go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of players have been in this situation against France, where they think they need something later, right? They're at the 16-minute mark, and they cannot understand why the Knights are able to dive their TC. They're having the worst time trying to hold this, but it's because, like you said, they've given away a lot of their army. Yes, they moved out and they managed to kill a few of your traders, but your trade isn't the main part of your economy. It's a boost. It's a bonus on top of your already normalized vill amount. And so your army is just going to outmass that no matter how much damage they do to you on your trade line.
Yep. And now he's...
Especially because they sacrificed units to do it.
Yep. And despite them having a lot of spears in production, like he can't... One, he needs another, like, barracks. But my opponent has been so stressed by these fights, he's obviously forgotten to make infrastructure. And he just can't afford it half the time. He's like, oh, gotta produce more, gotta produce more. When in fact, he could cancel half these spears and half these archers and drop down another 2. Oh, and I think that's what he does here. He cancels some of his archers. Oh, and no, he's just massing more spears from 1 barracks.
Pumping spears. Yeah.
And that's the problem is if he had all the spears he had in queue right now, he could easily go push my base with mass spears and go do some damage. But his hand has been forced in so many ways. He's just constantly following behind, and our military numbers are the same, but my eco's double his at this point almost. which is not where you want to be as Templar. Templar is a win harder civ. They can afford to make big mistakes where they just lose half their eco over the course of a game. And yeah, Templar, oh man, they've lost so many of those pilgrims. That's hurting their economy. Oh, I do want to notice.
And they went for Genoa, which means they're not going to be able to afford their crossbowmen, which is the main reason you go for Genoa. You want to start making the crossbowmen that are going to two-shot the enemy's knights. I say two-shot. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but you know, these crossbowmen that do so much damage to
I think
knights,
they six-shot.
They can't afford any of them.
Yeah, they can.
There you go.
Which is still like, if you have like a spearman and a Genoese crossbowman, they will beat us a knight no problem. Like, very easily. For the same amount of resources, the knight will do nothing, which is horrible. So like, they have the tools to counter me. They just can't, because they can't be everywhere at once. They're running out of eco. Once again, they're just getting idled now in the south. And meanwhile, I've actually, if you look in the north or the right corner, not the north corner, you'll see I placed a new market to re-extend my trade to my market. So now suddenly I can afford to like keep my trade going because I'm still getting a decent amount out of it. It should, 39 food, which obviously I'm going to trade for food here because I can just go out on the map for gold as needed, but I'll like rotate my trade once again as needed. So that's, once again, the strength of French is I was low on food, so I just traded for food, which is way more efficient than trying to go out and get on berries. So
I guess I have to ask for the French players here, what is the timing that you should go for trade? Because I've seen so many French players give away too much going for trade too early, or on the other hand, too late. What is the window as a Jeanne player that people should be looking for?
You have it usually between the 7 and 9 minute mark, where you either have to double down on your just early night production and you want to go like pro scouts and just grab a lot of deer and just try to get out as many knights as quickly as possible, or you have to just accept that you're not raiding very well, but you have map control, so then you can go for trade. And I think the map control is the real key word there. You want to be able to trade without it getting noticed or attacked. Because if you lose, you want to get like 4 to 5 traders out right away that isn't getting raided to maintain that control.
And that was a wonderful killing blow, by the way. The knights going into the base right there. You knew you had the numbers. You had your Castle Age timing. Royal bloodlines come through, and that's that deadly Jeanne timing. Yeah,
and you got Jeanne upgraded. I have the AoE heal. I have all my charges. I have the free men-at-arms to go help kill the spearmen. And I have equal numbers. And that's the thing. This is the thing that a lot of French and Jeanne players need to understand. When you're in especially like Castle or Imp and you have your Royal Institute upgrades or your University upgrades, depending what you went for, once you have all that, you can trade one knight to one spear so efficiently, you can just keep doing that. Like if one knight's fighting one spear back to back to back, you can kill like 3 spears in a row without any issue, especially if you have the Jeanne healing. Then you can go like 4 spears. So suddenly what should be an even fight or a losing fight for me is now a winning fight that I can just go in, take out stuff. And if you have 20 like French knights that are like fully upgraded, they're going to take like 3 damage a shot from a TC 2 or 1 or whatever. And you just don't care about TC fire. You can just run through their eco and just not care. So I'm willing to trade armies, because once I beat his army and I still have like 20, 15, 10 knights left, those knights can just run through his eco and finish the game. I don't need to destroy his base. I don't need to go imp and start making cannons. I don't need trebs. Literally just beat the army, make knights, go in base, kill villagers, game's over.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I don't have anything to add to that, because I mean that's what it is. That's that French timing. That's what's made France and Jeanne so good in the last 2 seasons, and always, right? I think
Yeah.
they've always been good civs for that timing. But if you want to
Mhm.
get into like the nitty gritty of timing attacks in RTS, where it's all about hitting when your army is at its most powerful with the right amount of numbers and the right amount of eco behind it, like a timing attack in RTS is when you're gonna. I mean, like that's what makes France good. Is your
Yeah.
timing attack is I don't even want to say it's easy to execute, but if you execute it precisely, it's more simple than some of the other ones, which allow
Yeah.
you to just kind of focus on the micro and focus on the timings and focus on when you're doing everything.
Yeah.
Just the when is an important part of France, I think.
Yeah, and I'll say, and this is once again for people who are trying to get into French or JD, one thing that's really important to understand is that, like, I may have made that look easy, or to any high level players, they're probably looking at me like I'm trash and it's okay. But,
Right.
yeah, the big thing there is I'm playing on a knife's edge, so to speak. Like, at any point in time, because my opponent's making counter units, if I misuse my knights and I throw away half an army, or let's say I even throw away 5 knights is the difference between beating that spear and archer blob that was going onto my trade early or not being able to beat them. I could not afford a loss of a huge number. Maybe one, maybe two, but once I start getting to like the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, just wasting knights like that will just lose me the game instantly. That is where French and JD suffer, is that they can't afford losses. But if you don't lose anything, while you do make your opponent lose things, you whittle them down. Because the strength of French and JD is not in their economy, but in the strength of their military to make decisive like victories. That is the real benefit.
Yeah, learning not to fight as one of the most fighty feudal civs is the skill, right? It's like you get into a position where you're like, okay, I could go for those 2 extra villagers, but there are 2 towers there, so my knights are going to take more damage than they should. I could even lose one. And you start to make those calculations, right? Is that villager worth my knight? Absolutely not.
Yep. No, 100%. And that's where I think a lot of people really need to learn, like, how to really use their knights properly, is what can you dive and what can you not dive, what fights can you not take, how do you position your army to just avoid like the spear brace. Because if you learn how to avoid spear bracing, like suddenly your knight like survivability goes way up, whether you're doing a charge cancel, you're flanking your opponent, or heck, even just using a stealth forest. If your opponent doesn't have vision but you do, and you charge in a stealth forest, the spearmen can't brace because they don't see the knights coming in time to brace. So
playing primarily Delhi, I can relate to that so much. Just like thinking about Ghazi are so paper thin because they're just a horseman, but they feel so strong when you actually get engaged with them because they have extra HP, because they have extra damage against armor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there is that moment where like if you take a bad engagement or if you dive a little too heavy with the Ghazi, all of a sudden you've lost 5 of your units, and that was 500 food, 500, almost 600 food with that much Ghazi. So yeah,
not worth it if you just waste. Well, thank you, Penguin, for joining me for today's cast. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. You all take care, and we'll see you in the next video.